All right, we'll start the meeting. You guys ready over there?
Yep.
And do you need us to introduce everyone so you have the names? Or do you have it?
It's up to you.
All right, well, up to you. We'll do that. We got Matt on the end. We
Hey.
got Brian. We got Ruby.
Hi.
We got John. We got Mike. And we got Revy. So, all right, so we'll get started. Any changes to the agenda? Probably not. So we'll move on to public comment. Anyone online?
No.
Move on from that. Approve previous meeting minutes. For those who were here, was everyone here at the last meeting?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented, or if there's any changes?
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second. Are there any corrections, changes, additions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone want to abstain? Okay, there it is. And we're all voting tonight, by the way. Let me see. Oh, reorganization. Oh. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chair. So every year we elect a new chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. I guess there's no treasurer because we don't collect any money.
Chair, vice chair, secretary. Secretary is always optional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't had one in a while. It's sitting over there.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Oh,
Everybody takes the minutes.
Yeah.
So. If anyone wants to make a motion for chair, if anyone's interested. I've been the chair for I don't know how long, and if someone else wants to step in, that's fine, but it's up to you. It's your prerogative, whatever you want to do.
I'll make a motion for you to be chair.
I'll second.
Right. Any other nominations from the commission? No one stepping up, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I can't vote. How about vice chair? Anyone interested in being the vice chair?
Consider it.
Okay. Do I have a motion for John?
I'll nominate John.
All right,
I'll second.
second. Any further discussion or other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of John as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Wow.
Anyone want to volunteer to be secretary? Don't everyone jump up and. I think we're
What
gonna
does it
pass
entail?
on the secretary.
Yeah.
You know, the pressure I'm a little more, man.
Yeah. It's your job as the mayor.
Notes have been very good.
Always somebody.
What's that? Yes,
The
they,
meetings have been.
what's that?
Always somebody else's job.
Yeah, always someone. Okay, so that's done. Planning and zoning update.
Yeah. Yeah. So I sent this around a couple weeks ago, so it is a little dated now. But I realized I hadn't done one of these in a while. And I typically, I don't know how, it's my infrequent regular planning and zoning update. So in here, I just went over all the permits that have been issued in the city in FY26. And just a summary of of the breakdown of the permits issued. So 50 zoning permits issued in total in FY26. So from July 2025 to end of June 2026. Permits for 15 dwelling units, 7 of which are located in 259 Main Street
Which one is 259 Main?
at the corner of Main and LaFountain.
Oh, that's one that Nate put up.
Yeah, it's the brand new
Hmm.
one. Yeah. Yep. So none of the permits were for priority housing or for inclusionary housing projects. Don't think, if I remember correctly, no permits for like 3-bedroom houses, anything like that. Permits mainly for ADUs, and for the 259 Main Street, which is 1 bedrooms and I think 1 2-bedroom, if I remember correctly. 6 permits required review and approval by the Local Resource Advisory Board. So the Local Resource Advisory Board was established in March 2024, I want to say. So at that time, Mike can probably provide more information about this because this was before my time, that the city decided to establish a historic district in a sense, and establish a list of structures that are considered historic. This list is largely based off of a report done by VHB in 2020 and 2021. That report used our state historic register as a foundation and then collected some information, mainly dashboard surveys of structures, and provided recommendations to the city on how and methods to preserve these structures in the long term. So the city took that on and decided to establish a local historic register and an additional review process for any improvements to historic structures. This means that, say, for like a roof replacement project, typically roof replacements do not require a zoning permit. They would only require a building permit. However, if you own a historic building and it's listed on the local historic register, that would require a zoning permit, review by the local resource advisory board, and then a building permit. So it's an additional step for those historic buildings to make sure that the historic nature is being retained and maintained over time. So they've reviewed roof replacements, roof repairs, porch repairs, and window replacements. So primarily projects that for non-historic structures would not have required zoning. But they've had some interesting meetings about larger projects that had to go through zoning anyways and required DRB review and approval. And they provided some input in those projects that otherwise would not have been there previous to March of 2024.
Is there any pushback from residents or anything? Because that's kind of a new thing. I know in like New York City and stuff, landmarks and stuff was always contentious. I'm just curious.
It's had some weird growing pains, to say the least. When the local historic register was established, most of the property owners didn't know that their properties were listed. So at the beginning of the summer, we sent out a notice to every single property owner, letting them know that their property is listed. And then we had one of our open houses that featured historic preservation and invited them to attend so they could ask members of the local resource advisory board about their property, why it's significant, why it's listed. And even that has had some interesting hiccups too. Just because it's so the local historic register includes structures that aren't typically considered historic, meaning that they're not older than 50 years of age. So it's had some interesting conversations and quirks. To say the least.
I know that some of the people who got the letters were very confused about what it meant. I can't remember if it was because it said you've got a historic structure, and if you do anything, you have to whatever. And what are we talking about?
What is the criteria for being on?
Is
it the state and the national register?
It is similar to, but not the same. So if a building is, I think ours might be a little looser. Let me just pull up the language so that way I can read it off.
No, there's a house on Florida Avenue that we have to add to it.
You lose my one.
A swimming pool. It's all the stuff you learn at the polls, you know.
Yeah, so historic structures are it appears to be if they're evaluated by a qualified historic preservation consultant and they determine the significance and they ask the local resource advisory board to have their property listed, then the local resource advisory board can recommend to you to have that property listed. So the local historic register is embedded in our zoning regulations, meaning that to list a property requires a change in the zoning regulations, and to remove a property requires a change in the zoning regulations. It's pretty is pretty heavy. So that's the entire process in a nutshell. There's no age requirement like with state historic register qualifying structures or National Historic Register qualifying structures. It would just require an evaluation by a consultant, by a historic preservation consultant, and a review by the local resource advisory board before it goes into the amendment process with you.
So we would be like discussing like individually, like properties, whether or not they get added or removed.
That is a great question that I think the board is still figuring out too. So it's a bit odd. I think it'll come to you too. What council's stance on it is at the end of the day. From my understanding, the local resource advisory board isn't tasked with actively soliciting structures to be included. Like they're not reaching out to property owners and saying, hey, we think your building is important. You should get this evaluated or anything like that. It's more of a, if a property owner wants the building to be listed, then they can go through the process to have it being listed.
But if there's a house that's supposed to be demoed and it's a older structure that may not be on a list, do they have the right or the ability to look at it and say, wait a minute, this should not be torn down because it's historic for whatever reason?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
So that's again like another piece with the with council kind of considering this too. But I think I would consider this to be a little bit too heavy-handed to have, because for Winooski that could cover most of the structures in the city. So then that would mean that to demo a structure would require some sort of review by the Historic Resource Advisory Board before it could even go forward, which I don't think we're trying to encourage. I think that the way that I see it is that we'd want to preserve our landmarks and the foundational elements that recognize Winooski's historic character. But I think that
So a little background. Sorry, go ahead.
I was at one concern that one concern that I had and the former mayor had with this is we're given a list of a lot of properties that could be considered historic, and some of them, to say it nicely, did not look great anymore. So my concern is, are we going to preserve something because it's old but it's falling into disrepair? If we were like a city that had like money to throw at it and be like, we're gonna make this look like it did beautifully in its heyday in 1840, great. But if we can't do that, I'm wary of preserving a property that then can get torn down when in reality it should get torn down because it is already falling down. Now, if something is beautiful and, you know, somebody very important lived there or something like that, that's different. Like that falls into like a historic property that's pretty obvious, but like I want to make sure we're not just preserving old homes just because they're old. If they're old and there's a reason for them to be preserved, I love that. Big history buff. But just for old sake, that's not what I'm looking to do. So just so you know, some of the discussion that kind of happened when we were talking.
Yeah, I'll also add that in Winooski too, so much change has happened over time with many houses that many historical elements have been lost to time, like original siding for many houses, or vinyl siding that's now on a house that could get that qualified by age, or additions to front facades that affect the interpretation of the building. So you can't even tell whether it's really historic or not at the end of the day. So that makes preservation challenging, and arguments for preservation challenging for some properties in the city.
And as background, what happened when, I think it was in 2015 or so, when we redid zoning, we had in there about historic structures, and you had to get approval of the State Historic Preservation Committee, whatever it was. The first one that came along was the mansion up on the corner of Mansion Street and Main Street. The Vermont Historic people said, oh, we don't do that. So like, what? Anyway, so since then, we've been trying to come up with some way to
Yeah.
get some language in that we could save some of the really historic buildings. Anyway, and I thought that I won't say her name, but is doing a survey. Did she finish the survey of buildings? It was going to be on a map or something. That's a good question.
Yeah, we kind of started that idea of like, I think the the direction that I was trying to give the board was, are there any landmark buildings that are missing from the map? And it kind of became, let's just document all the historic buildings. And I was like, no, that's not the purpose of this exercise. Because if we do that, then we'll enter into this rabbit hole of like figuring out that, 75% of the houses in Winooski would qualify by your standards. It's making sure that, are we missing anything important? And we kind of like put that on pause just because that, I think the meaning was lost with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes back to like kind of like with Mansion, or kind of like with like the Winooski block, right? Those are landmark buildings.
Yeah.
And it's good to know whether there are any other landmark buildings that we're missing. Not just, sorry, but houses.
Okay, and has there been any discussion in that group about districts? For example, you could say, here's the Mill District or whatever.
Not yet. And I think that is an important discussion that we need to have. So more information to come on that.
Okay. Any other questions about this whole thing? Okay.
I think you,
Go ahead, Brian.
okay, I think you already covered this, but could you repeat, like, what is the list of properties that are currently on the register? Is that coming from that initial, like, 2021 study? Or have these already been, like, submitted by the property owners?
So I'll just pull up the map. So this map, share. And will it come? Who knows? There it is. So this map was adopted back in February 2024. This map hasn't changed since adoption. This map is based off of the VHB study and our state historic register. So for the creation of this map, I think this is a question more for you, Mike, or Thomas. Like, I don't know if property owners were informed that they were going to be listed on this map. I couldn't find any record of it.
I don't think they were, because I think these were properties that were already on. And there was a study done in the 70s that identified historic structures. But over time, I mean, if you bought one, you may not know it,
No.
and I don't think anything was done to say, oh, Matt, your house, by the way, is on the National Register. It was just, this map came up, and if you didn't see it, well, you didn't see it. But then you sent a letter to everyone this summer whose properties were on it. And from what I understand, because my wife was on that committee, there were several who were surprised that their house was on the register, and didn't know quite what it meant. So.
Yeah, it comes up for like most of the applications that come to the Local Resource Advisory Board. When I talk to applicants and I tell them, oh, zoning is required for this, your property's on the local historic register, and they're like, what are you talking about? So, and I think even with the notice, it's still going to happen, because there are like 90 plus properties on this list.
But I think more and more, you may or may not know that the Historic Society has a program where you can order a plaque to put on your house. And I'm trying to think how many, again, Sue has been working on it. There must be 20, 30, 40 that they've set
Oh,
out so far at
That's-
least.
Yeah.
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 That's cool.
Yeah.
So more and more people are getting them. But that doesn't mean that they're on the National Register because your house has to be over 50 years old.
Yeah.
You know, but everyone that she's done so far, I'm gonna guess that the newest house was probably built in the 20s. Most of them are 1800s and whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, there's more information about that's on this Winooski Historical Society
Yeah.
website. You can order a plaque. What was it, like $40?
I think
50
it's
bucks.
$100.
Now it's 100.
Yeah, well, it's the plaque and then
You get all the research.
Sue does all the research.
Who does all the research? Yeah.
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 And it's perfect research, by the way. I hope you heard that, Sue. Anyway, sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good.
Any other questions about this? Any of the properties that are listed? Anyone see their house on there and they say, what?
Chicks is on
You can
there.
just scroll up.
Chicks is on it, yeah.
The weird one is down in Memorial Park, but that's on there.
Can you bring that?
Yes. So Memorial Park is an archaeological site.
Oh, okay.
So it's archaeologically significant. I'm not aware of any structures down there, but I am aware that it is
Yeah.
archaeologically
That
significant.
makes sense.
And I think the oldest buildings in the city are the Stone House on East Allen Street, the mansion. And I'm not sure what after that would be. I think that
Yeah, the list has it.
yeah, but like it used to be what is the RVA now up the hill? Used to be-
I don't know the dates.
Right up here on the other side of the tracks. Anyway.
Mhm.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, so this is all in the zoning regulations, if you want to take a look at the list. And then the entire state historic register is on the city website. The VHB report that was done a few years back is also on the website. Okay.
Okay.
So onto other topics on that planning and zoning update. What did I even write? Yeah, so permits for dwelling units is way down. But Winooski historically has kind of had these interesting like booms and busts every year. It's like there's a year that there are many houses permitted, and then there are years that there are none, and it just kind of goes up and down. Sometimes in alternating years.
I'm gonna guess recent permits have been for multi-unit structures as opposed to single family. There's not many
No.
new
Yes.
single family homes
Yeah.
being built.
Yes. Yeah. Single family dwellings are few and far between. It's mainly been for like ADUs, multi-unit, additions that were multi-unit projects like that. The DRB reviewed 8 projects and 1 appeal last year. And then in the last 7-8 months, the internal process has been refined a bunch with more input from DPW early in the process rather than later. It's from my understanding that DPW is involved in projects after zoning typically, and then they work with the applicants or the developers on water sewer connections and things like that. I think there's been some recent complications from projects. So we've shifted DPW review to the beginning and then determining completion of a zoning permit only after DPW's completed their review, because that would determine whether utility impacts are being satisfied and water wastewater connections are being satisfied. So that's extended our review time for projects significantly. So turnaround times for permit applications requiring public works review can be between like 6 to 8 weeks at the earliest now. So for example, for a couple projects that the DRB reviewed, one project that the DRB reviewed last month, I had been in conversation with that applicant since January. And they only met kind of the basic requirements in May, and then DPW and I had a conversation, and I brought that back to the applicant. And so there was further refinement that needed to happen before they were ready for DRB review. Similarly, another project for an ADU that was reviewed back in, I want to say April. That process also started in January. And they were further along in the process when they came to me, but that still required some back and forth and refinement before it could be ready for DRB review. Overall, though, it's made review processes with the DRB a lot more straightforward, a lot cleaner. Like the meeting in last month, I think that was 25 minutes. And the DRB didn't really have any questions because we covered all the bases pretty much. So I think that's one of the results out of this is even though we are extending review times, we are streamlining it in certain parts too, to make sure that these projects are comprehensive and complete before they are permitted.
But even 6 to 8 weeks, I mean, in the scheme of review in the state of Vermont, that doesn't seem too bad. You know what I mean? I mean, if you have to go through Act 250, hold on to your hat.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
in general, 6 to 8 weeks for a permit is in a big city would be
Right.
good.
Mhm.
Is the majority of that time to work out those like back and forth questions between the Public Works Department and the applicant? Or is there a factor of like staff availability that's part of that?
A bit of both for Public Works. Right now is their busiest season. So their capacity to review projects is pretty limited. Usually we sit down once a month and just go through every single permit that's on my desk and then we iron out all the details and then bring that back to the applicant and the applicant comes back with a revision. So it's a bit of both on DPW side mainly, just because it's the summer.
Any other questions?
Okay. Building typologies is now complete. That's in front of you.
It is complete.
It's complete.
Okay.
So yeah, a couple weeks ago when I was writing this memo, we were still working out finer details in the report, but now it's complete. If you do notice any typos or anything like that, feel free to let me know.
But
There's one.
we'll get to it.
Yeah,
So it's not complete.
yeah, I think they can fix the like final typos. That's fine. Yeah. I think for me, I picked out a lot of typos and then I just probably got tunnel vision. So if you notice anything, yeah, let me know. But they're open to answering any questions that you have about the report itself, typos aside. So if you do have any questions, feel free to let me know and I can forward them on to Jeff and Keith and they can give you an answer.
So in terms of discussing this, I don't know if we have to accept this or whatever, but we probably at the next meeting have a further discussion about this.
Yeah.
Give us time to read through this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah, I think it'd be good for you to accept it. Does council
Or
need
maybe
to?
maybe we have to forward it to the council for approval or
Yeah, I
something.
think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from what I understand from Elaine, council doesn't necessarily need to accept it or acknowledge it, but they should see it and understand that it's been completed and make sure that we're operationalizing it.
What's the dumb question? I'm going to ask it anyway. what's the purpose of this and where's it gonna sit? I mean, it's gonna be somehow melded into our zoning regulations? How do you envision that?
That is a good question for the work plan, because it's going to be deeply connected to the work plan and the other item in the work plan. So I can
So
jump
you
ahead.
want me to, you want me to wait and hold it until we discuss the work plan? Okay,
Yes.
I can do that.
Thanks.
But remind me when you get there.
I'm gonna, I'm definitely gonna bring it up, so don't worry. I think, yeah, the last two things I have here are comp plan updates. So, the open house on July 29th, was well attended. So thanks for coming out. And thanks to Watt for tabling and doing some marketing for it. The next one is on August 27th, which is Thursday. So there won't be a second meeting, but if you can come out to the open house, feel free to stop by. It'll be focused on the Safe, Healthy, Connected People section. Safe, Healthy, Connected, the Safe, Healthy, Connected Committee is going to be doing some activities with that too. So this will be from 5 to 7 at the senior center. And hopefully if the weather holds up, then we can be outside. That's my goal. Yeah. And then with the master plan, municipal plan, it's now expected to expire at the end of 2027. So under recently adopted Act 152, any regional or municipal plan due to expire in 2026 or 2027 shall have its expiration date extended until December 31st, 2027. So that gives us some breathing room to review and approve the comp plan. But I'm still holding firm on the original timeline to make sure that we have it adopted around March. I think that I'm seeing this comp plan as a lighter update based on all the work that the city has done on public engagement and all the reports and studies that they've done. But I'm very well aware that come 2035, we're going to have to do a lot of work. So it's not only on like the municipal plan side, but probably on the bike ped plan side, because that is a couple of years old now. And we have accomplished a number of items on the bike ped plan. And our economic development strategic plan is, I would say it's obsolete. It's from 2017. It's still workable and we are still using it operationally. But I think by 2035, it'll be obsolete. So we're going to need to update that too. So during the next adoption cycle, I think it's going to be a multi-year effort with all the different plans that we have to need to be updated all at the same time.
You guys need to be thinking about that in 2035, because I won't be here.
Would you compare that to like what Burlington's doing right now with Plan BTV? I think they have like 4 different
Yes.
plans that they're bundling together in the public engagement process.
Yes. Yeah. I think by probably 2032, 2033, we're going to be in a similar situation as Burlington with multiple plans that are staggered, but also all equally obsolete. So it makes sense to think of it all synergistically and all at once.
EV charging.
EV charging. Yeah, the report's finished. The report was finished back in the winter, back in February. Gave a presentation to City Council at that time. We're still continuing to work with CCRPC and the state on potential EV charging installation funding and opportunities. So there's been, I don't know if you're familiar with some news about VTrans doing a call for potential places for EV charging. So I've submitted forms for that for Landry Park, for Cassavant. And I think for those two locations, one of the two locations, Landry Park, was scoped in our EV charging plan. We have a quote for the Cassavant site. So we understand the constraints with that.
How many EV charging stations do we have in the city right now?
Publicly,
So one in the garage, I assume?
yes. So in the Cascade Garage, I don't remember how many plugs there are there. But in the Cascade Garage, we have level 1 plugs. And I think with the new garage, it's a work in progress on public EV charging for the new garage. But other than that, there are no other public EV chargers available. All of the chargers that are available are private, either at individuals' homes or at apartment buildings.
Is
Is there one?
Like EV charging signs, no actual EV charging
Oh, here?
at the school.
Oh, at school. So the school's wired for it. So the school has all the conduit there. They just need to, we're trying to figure out, is there a way for them to get money to put in a charger? Yeah, I did submit a form for the school, I think, too, or maybe, I don't remember. But either way, the school and I have been in contact about this project and trying to figure out what their needs are and figure out what are some pathways for them to get the supply equipment to plug in. That's all they're missing.
Are there any statewide requirements for like a minimum amount of EV charging? Like Massachusetts has requirements for like new parking areas, a certain percentage, like 10% or whatever needs to be. Is that something we would even want to think about? Like the only new parking is over by Cassavant. It probably won't happen again anytime soon, but it's just something I guess to throw out there to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely think about that locally. We can put that into zoning as a requirement instead of an incentive. That is, there has been a guidance document that's now a bit dated, I think 8 years old, from VTrans on how you can incorporate EV charging requirements into municipal zoning. In the most recent residential and commercial building energy standards, that required EV charging.
Okay.
So I think for municipalities that adopt stretch code, like South Burlington, they would have that EV charging requirement for larger projects. But with the executive order shifting back to the 2020 building energy standards requirements statewide, I think that is only for wiring, but not for chargers, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And it's only for certain projects of a particular threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a bit of yes and no.
Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Is that it? For that topic? Any questions?
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. You had a question on the chat, right, Trevor?
Yeah, I did. I'll just
Okay,
say it
Trevor.
again so people can hear. We were talking about Act 250 a couple minutes ago, and I'm just wondering, because I read where it was written and there wasn't more context to inform me, so maybe you know, or maybe someone else knows, but why was it decided statewide to extend the expiration date for municipal plans until the end of 2027? I just have no background on this.
I think it has to do with the status of the regional plan timelines. So now with the, trying to remember which one, I think it's under Act 181 that we have to include our housing goal, the regional plans housing goals into our municipal plan, along with their map of their future land use map into our zoning. I think only in the last week that CCRPC's plan was adopted. So because, and they're one of the first So I think in order for everyone else to catch up with the plan requirements, the state decided to extend those timelines. So that way municipalities can meet those requirements that are in Act 181.
Okay, thank you for the info.
Okay,
Okay.
let's move on to, let's see, what would be the work plan?
Yeah. So we have a work plan, a draft one. The basis of this work plan kind of stems from previous year's work plans. This is how previous year's work plans were set up, where we would highlight city council's priorities that intersect with planning and zoning and identify our role in that. So it's the first three are a continuation of previous council priorities from previous years. So continue to update the UL UDR, address housing priorities, carry out the equitable housing needs assessment, which will be finished at the end of this year. Update the comp plan. And then the last one's a new one, the water distribution system master plan update. And then the planning commission's role, I pulled from previous work plans, speaks very generally. So we can wordsmith that if you'd like. But I would like to talk a bit about the water distribution system master plan update. So one of the constraints that the city has isn't water supply itself, but the water lines. So the water lines in the residential districts are sized for a typical single family residential neighborhood. They're 6-inch water lines. So we have been, mainly DPW has been running into some issues about connecting multi-unit housing projects to 6-inch lines. The main concern isn't water itself, but the pressure. Because if you have undersized pipes and you have larger needs for it, then you would have less pressure. And so that's what I'm working with DPW to figure out, where are we anticipating growth? So therefore, which lines should be switched out to larger water lines to accommodate for future growth. So that's part of the building typologies itself. So with building typologies, I think it helped DPW and I to think about what is anticipated build out. What could build out look like in our residential districts, and how would it look? And so based off of that, if we were to look at building forms in the RC district, then we would know, okay, this is the expected growth that we should anticipate in the RC district, and therefore we should upsize certain lines in particular locations for that growth. So we could prioritize particular lines over, say, locations in the RA district that weren't part of the study. And those could be deprioritized for now and regarded later at a later time for upsizing. So I think that thinking about, I think for me and for DPW, thinking about the building typologies project and then this water distribution system master plan update, that is, I think, going to inform further conversations about how we want to implement the building typologies. About which areas do we want to see further density? Do we want to see different forms and potential changes to other parts of the zoning regulations to accommodate that type of form, that type of built environment versus other parts of the city? So that's where it all intersects.
Was there any issues with waste lines?
No.
Well, again, I think the age of a lot of the infrastructure, especially sewer lines, there's some pretty old pipes in the ground. I know when we did some back in the early 2000s, we were finding 100-year-old clay tile pipe. So, and finding lines that or not knowing where lines were. So, but that's all been, I think it's pretty well updated. So they've got mapping of, there was a time when there was no maps of where water lines were. And I tell John Rosher this, there was, in the late nineties, I think it was, there was a water main break. They couldn't find the shutoffs. They had to shut the water off in the whole city to fix the break, and they found the shutoff under 6 or 8 layers of pavement. But they didn't have any maps, so they didn't know where it was. But that has changed, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, the last water district system master plan update was in 2016, I think. So yeah, we have precise maps on where water lines are and where sewer lines are. It's a matter of testing out its distribution capability and determining which lines do we want to upsize over time and which we should prioritize.
And as Rebbe said, we have, last I knew, and Thomas, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have plenty of sewer capacity and water capacity to accommodate new growth, quite a bit of new growth. It's just the distribution lines.
Yeah. Yep. And that's all I have for the work plan. Any questions, suggestions, edits?
It's a lot of stuff we've been doing all along, so it doesn't change much year to year, but. And I should add that part of our job and with the zoning regulations or unified land use development regulations, whatever the heck it is. I always look at it as a living document that needs to change and update. So if you see something you think we should discuss this, let's discuss it. Something may need to be changed.
I guess I do have one comment here, but just making sure we have the city council's priorities, like making sure we know what those are, I guess.
We don't
Sounds
pay
like they
attention to
sort
that.
Nah. I know it's at the end of like the last session, so some people, they felt like maybe we're diverging from maybe what the city council wanted. So maybe just making sure we know those are very clearly. Be helpful. It sort of says it, but yeah.
Well, no, we do need to, because anything that we propose has to get approved by the council. So it doesn't make sense for us to propose something that's contrary to what the city council wants. If we're going down that route, we have to have the discussion ahead of time and figure out where we are. You buy that, Thomas, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, not much has changed in terms of the overall council priorities. Like we want you all finding ways that will encourage development in the city and be that smart development, right? Like we don't want Franklin Street problems popping up everywhere just to develop things, but we want development to happen. So you have the fun job of figuring out how to make that happen. But yeah, nothing there has changed. Like we're not, we haven't been briefed on anything besides, this water distribution situation. But other than that, like we haven't heard any reasons to why we need to alter our desires for development. So it's that's the plan.
I think with a comprehensive plan, I think we need to have a discussion of just, I'll say, how much development we want, some parameters. In other words, do we want to go crazy and, get as much development as possible? Or do we want to look at it and say, do we want this city to be one of a population of 9 or 10,000 or 12 or 15,000? Because there is some cost to development, and one of them is the infrastructure. Right. So I think we need to have that discussion with the council and with the other groups that we're going to be working with to give us a path forward. And it may be, let's go crazy and do whatever we can, or it may be, well, let's kind of rein it in a little bit. Yeah. We want development, but
we've seen recently, right, that there have been thought and belief in the city that like any development was great. That clearly was not the case. Like people turned out in droves against some specific projects. So not that that has changed any desire to develop, but I think it's like we're not where some of us thought we were in terms of where people are willing to see big structures go up and things like that. So you know, like I think we've decided like the corridors, right? Like we're gonna put big buildings there. There are still people who will complain, but like I think as a city, we have all kind of come to the agreement that like we're all okay with that.
But not in my backyard.
Well, somebody's backyard. You know, I'm not looking for some management here. No, like I definitely believe in developing the city, but like this room has never been as full as you saw it, as DRB saw it, or as we saw it when Franklin Street happened. So like,
Well, but not for developers.
yeah, I mean F-35, but like in the past 5 years. So like,
It was also pretty full when we were proposing the Armory project too, with a lot of people speaking in support of it. So I think, you know,
I'm not saying
yeah,
the Armory,
no, I
like,
think
say Franklin Street for a reason.
yeah.
Like there, I think, and maybe all of you, but maybe not, can recognize like the neighbors did not want Franklin Street to happen. So we had thought, a lot of us, that people would want Franklin Street to happen. It seemed that they didn't. So like we've got some more parameters from conversations that we've had over the years. The Armory is a whole different thing. Like there are people for them. I haven't heard anybody be for Franklin Street.
Yeah.
So like that's why I use that example. The Armory is different. There are definitely people for that project, definitely people against that project, but there's more of a discussion there, which I hope we continue having.
Can I back up just the water distribution? How pressing is that? Like, is there any development that's holding up, or is there some more development that can happen with the current 6-inch lines? And it's just like down the road we'll need to expand, or is there, is that question make sense?
I think it's a little, I think I'd be a little out of my wheelhouse to make that determination because I'm not an engineer.
Like booster pumps and stuff.
Yeah.
And things like that.
I think, yeah, and I think that from my understanding at least, there aren't any projects that are being held up, and Public Works, just like I feel like the rest of the city, like code enforcement and Public Works, they always find a way to make it work, to make sure that the building is accessible and that they are able to maintain their operations and work towards solutions. It's a matter of, for these future buildings, or even for these current buildings, is there going to be enough water pressure for them? And one piece that causes them alarm is buildings behind buildings, because that is an extension of a connection, of an existing connection that goes through a house. We don't create any new connections typically. If someone is building a duplex behind an existing duplex, water and wastewater has to go through the existing house and out to the street. So that creates some complications operationally for them that they've made known to me, and I think that would also create some complications in terms of water pressure, just to have that extra infrastructure, 100 feet of infrastructure potentially to go out to the street. So I think that to circumvent any future issues like that, this is why they're looking at what is distribution like and how do we make sure that we are prioritizing the upsizing of particular lines over others at the moment as we continue to maintain our infrastructure. And I also think that this is also a piece that they've voiced concerns to me about, like, is there a way, Ravi, to consolidate all the units into one building so that way there's just one connection out to the street instead of these connections between connections. So, and I think that's going to be a broader conversation at a later time of how do we incorporate some of these recommendations as we continue to maintain infrastructure and upsize infrastructure to make sure that we are growing incrementally and also growing in a way that is sustainable operationally for our city staff.
I think one question that we need answered on the water, especially water distribution system, is 6-inch pipe, as I understand it from what you said and whatever, is good for a single family home or several single family homes.
Mhm.
How large of a multi-unit building is adequately served with a 6-inch pipe? So in other words, if I have a 6-unit building, do I need to upgrade it to a 12-inch or a 9-inch pipe or something? Is it 10 units? Is it 20 units? You know what I mean? And that's not something you can answer, but I think if we get some information from Public Works, I think that would help us, because then we can say, well, geez, we're allowing all these 6-unit buildings, but it needs an upsized pipe, or maybe it doesn't.
I think so. Yes, exactly. We'll have some flexibility in the short term and the near future, because we're not seeing growth overnight. We're not seeing houses being demolished and turned into 4-unit buildings overnight that are going to cause pressure issues. But we need to be mindful of which parts can accommodate growth right now, which parts are going to be prioritized for growth, and which parts of the city have a much longer time frame for upgrades in terms of density.
You or Thomas probably don't know, but I'm wondering, with the Main Street reconstruction, did they upsize the water distribution line there to like a 12-inch or something?
I'm very sure they upsized it. I can't say.
I know they're putting pumps.
Yeah.
I don't know what they had pulled out, but they're putting them up.
Some of the sections were wood pipes.
That they pulled out.
They were wood
Oh,
with
yeah.
like metal bands around them, like
That's
barrels.
Yeah.
It's wild that they lasted for over 100 years.
Well,
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
But
They're still.
that's the exact problem.
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
I can tell you stories of some surprises that have been found in this city.
John showed us one meeting, like when they were doing scoping, and I forget what it was. Oh, a fire hydrant had been like tapped into one of all of us. So I don't know anything about building codes, but like you're not supposed to do that. So there's like all sorts of bad
I don't remember,
old stuff going on down there.
I don't remember the specifics, but where the veterans housing is down here on West Canal Street, when they were digging the foundation, down deep, they found an old like storm water discharge pipe that was, I think it was wooden, and I think it was like 36 inches or 48-inch diameter. They didn't know it was there. Okay. But that's all been ironed out.
Yeah.
So be confident that that's all that stuff's been ironed out. What's that?
So Mike figured that all out.
Yeah.
No, not quite. I just kind of scratched my head and laughed. It's interesting.
It'll be interesting too with the pressure stuff. These like lower areas normally have higher pressure and stuff, so it might dictate areas can actually have developed a bit more.
Yeah.
And others that
I
can't.
don't know if that works, but I know a lot of our water comes from the water towers up on Water Tower Hill in
Okay.
Colchester, because back in the early 90s, we contributed to putting those 425,000 gallon storage tanks up there. So it could serve, because Champlain water, the water coming into the city, I think there wasn't enough or something. Anyway, they had to put
Probably
2
low
tanks up
pressure.
there. Yeah. But
Interesting.
I know I got plenty of pressure at my house, so.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we digress.
Yeah. But that's okay.
That's typical, by the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get me in line.
But I think talking about timelines, so I think for the remainder of the year, the way that I have it sketched out is that we focus more on the comp plan and the revisions, the comp plan based on public input that we've been receiving. So I think during the next meeting on September 10th, we'll reintroduce the comp plan and start going through it section by section. Depending on agendas, we might add in like building typologies or talk about stuff, but I mean, I want to make sure that I'm not overloading you because these are going to be like weightier meetings. And then I think probably going into next year, once we've cleared out the comp plan as well, and we'll probably go back into thinking more about building typologies with the water master plan update work potentially, and equitable housing needs assessment work that's going to be finished at the end of the year, and then open up the ULUDR and figure out which recommendations we want to take into consideration and how do we want to take them into consideration.
I mean, I think you're right.
Mm.
The comp plan is, hanging over us. We gotta get moving on that.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be our priority in the next several months anyway.
And I think one other piece that I've been working on the side with the comp plan is trying to figure out, in a very general sense, where do we want to see growth and which parts of the city can accommodate more growth. So I think we should have that conversation as
Part of the comp.
with the comp plan, and that should be in the background as we talk more about building typologies, equitable housing assessment, and water master plan.
Okay, any comments, questions?
This question's mainly about the comp plan, but could apply across these priorities. Are we already planning on, or do you foresee opportunities to have additional joint meetings, like with the other departments or commissions on the different sections of the comp plan, or are those conversations happening already separately?
So I've been meeting individually with all of the committees. So I've met with all of the committees at this point multiple times on the goals and actions. So the draft goals and actions that are in the surveys that are being shown at the open house were created after multiple discussions with all the respective committees, sans you. So I think if we want more input at a later time from those committees, we can definitely get them. If we want to hold a joint meeting, we can definitely do that. But I think it'll depend on what the other committees, how they feel, and whether there's anything missing from our work. Because I'll definitely be keeping tabs on that, making sure that I didn't miss anything in their observations and experiences working on those particular sections as we work on those sections in these meetings.
Yeah. On that note, I could see DPW being useful at some point, planning for that.
Yeah.
We already implied that, but.
Yeah.
And as Ravi said, if we want to have a joint meeting with one of the other commissions, we can do that. We can ask for that.
Yeah.
We can't force them, but we can ask them very nicely. Anything else? All right. Building typologies.
Yeah.
Is this where I had a question that you wanted me to bring up, or was that on the work plan?
I thought I already addressed it with the work plan, but I can.
You probably did. But
Yeah.
I forgot the question, so.
How
Thomas?
How deep are we diving into this right now? So we were just saying next time, but
I don't think we want to dive too deeply into it.
No.
We just, we've seen some of it before, but folks like Ruby and Brian have not, so.
Mhm.
Matt, I think you were here when they gave that, they were.
Yeah, mainly for Ruby and for Brian.
And Trevor, you were here when we had Jeff and Keith, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
met with them a couple times.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the year, probably like last December, the Regional Planning Commission reached out to me and said, hey, we have a bunch of money for transit-oriented development projects, and we don't know where to spend it. Do you have a project? And I was like,
Absolutely.
I do. So working with the Regional Planning Commission and working with their focus on transit-oriented development, in Winooski, we have transit that serves our neighborhoods. So the number 9 bus, goes up and down Hickok and snakes its way through the neighborhoods. We came up with a project idea for residential building design. What is the design that we want to see in our residential neighborhoods, and what are the elements that we need to highlight in creating residential building form standards. A lot of this stemmed from Franklin Street. We were already having some observations from planning commission members at the time about Franklin Street and its design, and looking at the regulations and seeing a gap. So this helps to address that gap that's in our regulations, while also helping us think more proactively about how the city could look in the future if we were to have these design standards. Another piece with this project, I specifically asked our consultants to look at is whether our regulations actually enable the priority housing that the city is deeply interested in seeing. Do the dimensional standards make sense? Do they work? Are they functional? Do they need to be changed? So they took that and they pretty much ran with it with the form pretty much. So our consultants, Jeff Farrell and Keith Covington, Jeff Farrell worked on our form-based code, and he developed it back in 2015, 2016. So they came on board. They were pre-selected by the Regional Planning Commission. So there was no consultant selection process by me, because this was a grant that the Regional Planning Commission received from, I don't remember which agency, but I know it was a raise grant. There was nothing that we needed to pay for that project. So this project came to us free of charge, through the raise grant program through CCRPC. So Jeff and Keith came on board in mid to late January to work on this project. And they came out to the city in late February? No, late March, I want to say.
I'm going to guess March.
March. I just remember it being cold. So that's why I was like, is it February or March?
That's right. We did a walk around.
Yes. Yeah. So so for this project, I not only solicited you for guidance, but also the Housing Commission and the Local Resource Advisory Board. So they all had a part in providing input for the project, and were in the meetings with Jeff and Keith during their presentations, providing input to them. I think they did, want to say they came to a meeting probably online sometime in February, came in person in March, did a walk around, and then did another draft presentation in late April. And then based on all those meetings, came up with the report that's in front of you. Many of the forms and designs that are in part 3, most of you have already seen in previous meetings, and they refined it a bit to make sure that it had some of the design elements that you were looking for and the information that you were looking for, take from it. Overall, they were able to show that priority housing could be built on city lots. They didn't look across the city and look at every single lot. They took a sampling, and I guided them and said, take a look at, lots in Hickok and West Street. Take a look at lots on Manceau and on Hood. Look at the standard sizes and determine whether the building forms can be developed. Standard size lots in many sections of the RB district are 50 by 100. Many of the lots that are in like Hickok and West, they can range from like 30 to 60 feet of frontage, and then with 175 feet of lot depth. So that's what they used as dimensions. Kind of off the bat, looking at the map, looking at transit accessibility, the consultant said, we're not going to touch the RA district. So they said that this is not, based on what's there, mainly single unit houses, far from transit, in many locations without a sidewalk. This would not be suitable for having multi-unit buildings there. So they said, let's disregard that and let's look at what we should be planning for growth, which is closer to transit, closer to our arterials, and areas that are suitable for higher density development, and in locations that already have multi-unit buildings already. So all the designs that are there, they feature mainly 3-bedroom dwellings and 4-bedroom dwellings. Mostly 3-bedroom dwellings. I think they had a few that might have been 2-bedroom dwellings because of the space, and they had a unique configuration set up with the tuck under parking. So in those designs, it would have a ground floor 2-bedroom unit, and then the second and third floor would be 3-bedroom units. They showed designs. Yes.
I mean, wasn't the whole purpose of it to see how many
Yes.
3-bedroom prior to home, so 3-bedroom more units?
Yes. So yes. So they showed this with at 50% of lot coverage. And I think at the 50% lot coverage, that's where they were towing a line on whether they can actually get 50% lot coverage with all 3-bedroom units. When they got 65% lot coverage, they were able to comfortably put in 3-bedroom units for all the dwelling units. And even for the 50% lot coverage, they suggested some flexibility with that too. So removing front porches from lot coverage calculations, because that is a quality that we want to see in buildings in Winooski. And we don't want to penalize them for having it. And even with that too, they suggested going from a base 50% lot coverage to 55% lot coverage to allow for more flexibility with maneuvering and parking and building sizes. So that is, I think, the general gist of it that captures most of the report, I think. They do have certain other recommendations as well, such as allowing for 8-unit buildings instead of 4-unit buildings, or more units in a building than our current 4-unit building cap in the residential districts, along with a number of other smaller suggestions.
There was also street tree recommendations that we hadn't seen before, I noticed. Was there, I guess, more to that maybe to mention?
Yeah, so that was something that we had some conversations about with how do we encourage more street trees. And so they provided us pretty much their typicals for street trees on a right-of-way that's 49.5 feet, which is standard size for roads in Vermont, 3 rods, what that could look like and how that would appear. I think that's something that we could incorporate into zoning too. For new streets, it gets kind of tougher with existing streets, and something that we'd have to have more conversations about with council on how we'd want to create more street trees on our existing roads.
Okay, any other questions on this? All right. We'll move on.
There's probably, I mean, I think that outside the scope of this, but I guess one thing I am thinking about is like expected cost per unit, which I think that might have a big impact on which of these we actually do see developed here. Yeah, I guess I don't really have a question, but just one, I think, pretty important factor that's just outside of the scope of this.
Yeah, and they've acknowledged that in some conversations that the way that the project scope was defined to them was looking at affordable 3-bedroom dwelling units. And for projects that involve affordable 3-bedroom dwelling units, that's typically done by an affordable housing developer who is getting HUD funding, tax credits, some sort of external funding in order to build it. So they kind of took funding out of the question, knowing that it's going to be for a particular audience. I think once we talk about market rate, that's going to be a whole other question of design and form. But I think that it's interesting for us to look at, to think about design parameters. So that way, when a developer who's able to feasibly develop a 4-unit building at market rate wants to build it, then we can at least say, this is what we're aspiring towards, and these are the design standards that we have. So try to move towards that.
Okay. Move on to city updates, and we'll start with Mr. Mayor. Do you have any updates for us?
We're on our like August recess, so
Whoa, like Congress.
just
Yeah.
it's with none of the pay, but there was an election, which was thank you to those who volunteered and to those who ran. Congratulations. And it was, I'm trying to pull up the numbers now because the turnout was actually great.
1467 or something like
It
that.
was. Sorry. At the email. Yeah, 1,437 voters.
I overshot by 30. I'm sorry.
81 voters who registered right there and then to vote. So that was huge.
So you were there when we had a gentleman come in who was obviously a new American who'd never voted before.
Yeah.
And he went to register with Jenny, and I think he was getting kind of frustrated because you have to show ID and stuff. And he said, well, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And there were about 6 of us.
So,
Said, we want you to vote. We want you to vote. And he kind of looked and he says, nah. And we kept after him. He said, okay. So he went back and he voted. And when he left, as he was leaving, he made a point of thanking all of us for letting him vote.
That was really nice.
It was great. Yeah.
It's really nice.
And you see that here quite a bit at the polls.
Yeah.
And I would encourage if anyone's interested in working the polls to do it. It's serious, but it's fun.
Yeah, no, it's really nice. I love doing it.
Yeah.
I do it whenever I'm not on the ballot, and that's a really nice way to experience democracy and just see
Democracy in action.
Yeah.
Especially when an older new American comes in with like their grandson or granddaughter who translates for them and tells them what to do. So it's kind of cool.
It's nice. It's really nice. What else will be interesting to you all? Hotel should be opening up September 21st. Let's see. The workforce housing next to it is starting to open up. They thought they were going to be open the end of June. That just didn't happen. The leases that they've signed, all of the people who signed those leases, they put them into hotels until their apartments are ready. So that's good. But people should be moving in if they haven't moved in already to the top floor, and then just working their way down.
Was that 87? How many units is that?
83.
83 units.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. We did a tour the other day. Really, really nice apartments. The hotel manager is trying to get some of his people living in the housing right next to work. We've got all like, I don't know, but
pretty much completes the downtown.
Yeah, I mean that
was started 25 years ago.
Yeah, that's the last piece is the hotel. So
well, there are technically 2
lots
left, but that's not going to happen.
Consider it done.
No, I understand, because one of the lots probably can't be built on, and the other one, the east pad site I'm talking about was proposed, and the west pad site. Okay, I'll leave that at that.
Is the hotel gonna have preemies?
What's that?
Yeah, there needs to be.
I heard a rumor.
Yes, but the premiums are for guests, so you have to do this location thing.
What'd you ask, Brian?
I heard a rumor there might be creamies at the hotel.
Yes, when you check in, you'll get a creamy.
And a rooftop restaurant?
But there's a rooftop restaurant.
Staycation.
It's nice if you can swing it. A nice little staycation would be good. There, it looks very nice.
The rooftop restaurant is not a rotating restaurant.
No, they can swing that, I guess.
And the restaurant's open to the public.
Yeah, restaurant. There's a restaurant on the roof. There's a coffee bar /bar in the lobby that's open to the public that will have like its own entrance. So if you just want to go for a drink, for a coffee, you can easily. Yeah. But yeah, not the companies. They thought about selling them and they're just like, didn't want to deal with having to figure out that whole infrastructure. So it's just if you check in.
Future improvement.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
That's it for your report?
That's it.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm on August recess, so here I am. So.
Well, thank you for coming, Thomas. Hold you off for your recess. Is that like in kindergarten when we had recess?
Kind of.
Okay. Do we have a liaison from the Inclusion and Belonging Commission?
I don't know. I know that they're still, they're doing some, yeah,
Staff.
they're doing some restructuring.
Okay.
I've been including King in the emails out
Yep.
for agendas and for future meetings. But I'm not sure if King is still the liaison. So I think that's to be determined once they figure out their restructure.
All right. So we'll jump to updates from city staff. That's you, Rebby.
Yeah. Let's see. So we have the open house in 2 weeks for Safe Healthy Connected. DRB is meeting next week to talk about UL UDR updates that we've all done. No applications currently. The Armory application is on my desk, and it's undergoing internal review right now. Hasn't been warned yet. So, yeah, it's to be determined for that. I think that might be the most that I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. We might get out of here by 8.
Yeah. Wow.
Any other business from members of the planning commission? Trevor? No?
I did just start thinking about how there's a surprising lack of creamies available in Winooski.
There's no premiums.
Not really.
Chicks has cream.
Chicks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got one
Yeah.
of those. Give them a plug.
I ran into some tourists who were walking out of Chicks asking if there were other creamy options, and I wasn't able to give them one in Winooski. So something to think about for future planning.
Waterworks happened for a little bit, but not enough of us were buying premiums apparently.
Well, if you want to start a business,
I mean,
there you go.
we've got vacant lot spaces.
All right. I think that's it. If there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Before we vote on it, thank you all for coming. Ruby, Brian, Matt, John, Trevor, Thomas, Revy, and all in favor of leaving, adjourning.
Thank you, Mike, also.
All right. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.